can start. Hello, everyone from hot Athens today. It is 38 degrees Celsius, very unusual for this time of the year. This is Lefteris Tapakis, and I welcome you to webinar 3 out of 4 of the webinar series for improving the quality of homeopathic case reports, and in particular COVID-19 homeopathic case reports. Our host today is again Andreas Tsokanas, who is a leading member of VC team. And in the panel, we have Robbert van Haselen, Professor Theodore Lilas, and Dr. Chetna Lamba. Allow me to do a brief summary of webinar 1 and 2. In webinar 1, we first saw a video by Professor Vithoulkas about COVID-19 and homeopathy. It was a part of the lecture that he gave, organized by the CCRH of the Ministry of Ayush. Ayush is the Ministry of Alternative Medicine and Homeopathy of India. You can find Professor Vithoulkas' lecture online in Facebook in the International Academy of Classical Homeopathy group. Of course, for a full understanding of Professor Vithoulkas' teachings and views about homeoprophylaxis and other topics, the best option is to attend his whole e-learning program. For information about the e-learning, you can go to www.vithoulkas.edu.gr or contact Maria Horianopoulou, who is the director of the International Academy of Classical Homeopathy e-learning program at maria@vithoulkas.com. In the first webinar, the main speaker was Dr. Robbert van Haselen. Dr. van Haselen has done research on case reporting in homeopathy and studied epidemiology as well. Dr. van Haselen spoke about the value of case reports, the role and the need for guidelines for writing a proper homeopathic case report. He explained the term practice-based medicine in correlation with evidence-based medicine and the link between research, education, and practice. He presented the care guidelines checklist for a proper case report, and he also stressed the importance of critical thinking in case reports. In the second webinar, the main speaker was Dr. Chetna Lamba, who has done a PhD on this field, that is the improvement of case reporting in homeopathy. She spoke again about the value of case reports in homeopathy and explained about the criteria for the establishment of a causal relationship of the homeopathic treatment with the clinical outcomes in case reports. This criteria, called the modified Naranjo criteria for homeopathy with the acronym MONARCH, is actually an algorithm that consists of 10 questions and ends up in a score that shows the relationship of the homeopathic treatment with the outcome. The higher the score, the better the relation. Later in this webinar 3, we are going to do a poll with you, the attendees, to ask you to apply this criteria on a case, the case that I presented during the previous webinar. Both webinars, 1 and 2, are available online in YouTube. Just type VithoulkasCompass in YouTube and you will find them. Now I would ask Dr. Robbert van Haselen to tell us for a few minutes about the efforts that the homeopathic community is doing for COVID-19 case collection. What I want to state, of course, is that the currently available data do not justify claims that homeopathic remedies cure or prevent COVID-19 infections. And our aim is to collect and learn from experiences with homeopathic treatment of COVID-19 or suspected COVID-19 patients using the latest scientific standards and methods. Dear Robert, please.
Thank you, Lefteris, and also thank you for a very concise and good summary. So I'm going to share my screen. Can you see my screen?
Yes.
Good. All right. We thought it would be interesting to give you very briefly an overview of the various initiatives that are currently ongoing in the world, and so that will be just 5 minutes now, and then at the end of this webinar, I will do a brief recap of some of the main points again that we that we would really like you to retain after this third webinar. So the main initiatives ongoing at the moment are 4 initiatives. And one is what I would call prognostic factor research. And this program is led by Lex Rutten, who is a Dutch homeopathic practitioner. And his objective is to build a COVID-19 mini repertory based on the analysis of the collective experience of homeopaths throughout the world. And he regularly, this is done in collaboration with the Homeopathic Liga. So every week or every other week, he sends a newsletter around. And on the 12th of May, there were 146 cases that were integrated in his newsletter. And again, he presented a mini repertory of the main and most commonly prescribed homeopathic medicines and the main and most valuable symptoms in terms of differentiating arsenicum from gelsemium, using likelihood ratio calculations. So this is what he refers to as prognostic factor research, to identify the most valuable symptoms that are likely to predict that you're going to prescribe a particular homeopathic medicine successfully. Then the other project is the project led by the American Institute of Homeopathy, and the main active person there is Peter Gold. He is maintaining and fostering a database, and I would like to inform that also this database informs the prognostic factor research done by Lex Rutten. Just on the 15th of May, he sent us also a new update, and there were at that point in time 121 cases in this database, 49 of which were confirmed COVID cases, and the remainder were suspected COVID cases. Then the third initiative is the Clinical COVID. This is a cloud-based application affiliated with Zeus Radar, and they have really worked very hard during the last 6 weeks to build something that's tailored to collecting data in a very systematic way, also with a lot of thought about how ultimately these data should be analyzed. And my understanding is that they're now in the final beta testing phase. And so the idea is that hopefully in the coming month, this will be rolled out. And hopefully this will give a real extra impulse in terms of the number of cases that can be added, for instance, to also the prognostic factor research project that Lex Rutten is doing. And then the fourth project is the clinical case reporting project, where we look at, where we aim to sort of promote high quality clinical case reports. And so, and this is coordinated by myself in collaboration with the VithoulkasCompass team. And as part of this strategy, this webinar series is also conducted. Now, so effectively what I emphasize is that we need mixed research. It's called mixed methods. So all these projects are valuable. The first three, the main focus is on collecting quantitative type of data. And in the clinical case reporting project, we are also aiming to get more granular qualitative type of information of really the sort of the finer understanding of what are we observing when we treat these COVID patients and what are the lessons that we're learning from that. And so that's what we're really focusing on also in these webinars. So then there's some further initiatives. Very briefly, there's various randomized controlled trial protocols which have been developed of both prophylactic as well as therapeutic clinical trials. The main countries so far where I have seen protocols from are India and Brazil. And some trials have started. I believe the first trial started last week. So I can't really say much about it yet, but some trials have started. And some trials, the protocols have developed, but they can't start yet due to some of the practical challenges, such as how can you get access to patients? For instance, in some Indian settings, the conventional doctors don't want to give access to COVID patients. They just want to treat them only conventionally. The logistics sometimes about, okay, if you're going to give individualized medicines, you need to see those patients. How can you do that safely? So there are some practical challenges, but at least it's good to know that there are some randomized control trials hopefully going to be conducted as well. Then there's a project by Andrea Valeri from Italy. He published a case series, I believe something like 80 cases in ResearchGate, which is sort of a platform that, a pre-publication platform where people can publish things even if it's not fully peer-reviewed, but it enables people to share their research early so that it's early available. And here below I'm giving the link to this publication, to the English translation of this study. Then there's also a very interesting project going on in Spain, coordinated by Dr. Marc Luis Clapers, who's based in Barcelona, and they have seen a lot of cases in Spain where the pandemic was quite bad. I believe they have in total about 100 cases, and they are in the process of writing up a case series, again, that may be able to contribute to some of the databases as well. So there's several more cases that could be added in theory to this pooled database that Dr. Rutte wants to use also for prognostic factor research. Interesting project has been happening in Hong Kong by Professor Aaron To and Yvonne Fock. And they actually gave preventive treatment with bryonia and gelsemium to 1 million inhabitants of Hong Kong and Macau, about 700,000 in Hong Kong and 300,000 in Macau. This was part of the second, during the risk for the second wave over there. And those who received these homeopathic prophylactic, they, as far as they were able to observe, they didn't develop COVID. Obviously, it's not a randomized controlled study, but it's definitely an interesting and promising observational study that's been done. Then there is a European initiative. This is not just homeopathy. It's called a case register called LEOS. And this is an initiative by the University of Freiburg in Germany. And there were some people of the CAM community, academics, who knew this initiative, and they convinced these academics to include also CAM cases, including homeopathy-treated patients. So this is a potential database to get also some homeopathy cases in the sort of the broader clinical case reporting community related to COVID-19. And finally, here is a question mark. I'm sure there are more initiatives. I would love to know about them. And so I don't pretend to be complete. So if I have overlooked anybody, then please let us know, and we will still share that in the next webinar. But the good and encouraging thing is that within the global homeopathic community, there's a very good collaboration. Within the Homeopathic Liga, there is good alignment and communication. Within the European Committee of Homeopathy, there's good alignment and communication. So I think it's very encouraging to see how really the homeopathic community is coming together and ultimately, hopefully, with the results that we can show that homeopathy can offer something to patients with COVID-19. Right, thank you.
Thank you very much, Robert. Now we go on to Professor Theodore Lilas, who is the head of research and development team of VithoulkasCompass and assistant professor of the University of the Aegean, Greece. Dr. Lilas will show us, among others, some interesting findings based on reported data from practitioners. Theodore, the floor is yours. You have to unmute your microphone.
Okay. Good afternoon to all our attendees, and thank you for joining us in this webinar. I will try to present the research we are doing in VithoulkasCompass and how we analyze clinical cases. And these cases, the analysis and statistics from these cases help us to build decision support tools that assist the homeopaths. So I'm leading the team for research together with Lefteris Tapakis, Anastasia Garoufali, and Artemis Maglara.
You are muted, Theodore.
Δεν με ακούσατε πριν που μίλησα?
Σε ακούσαμε, yes.
Okay.
Continue.
Okay. So we perform online case connection. We analyze the cases, and our main targets is to improve the repertory and materia medica from clinical experience, to develop support tools for the experts, for the homeopaths, and in this way to improve daily homeopathic practice by sharing experience. So from the beginning of the development of VithoulkasCompass, we used the experience of Professor Vithoulkas and also homeopaths. So we analyzed the cases and how people got treated through homeopathy. And in this way, we built an innovative inference engine based on cured cases. So we make several runs in order to develop a system that it is based on homeopathic rules and also on cured cases. And in this way, we try to improve both the algorithms and improve the repertory and have a valid repertory together with algorithms based on cured cases. So this is our aim, and we have been working on cured cases from the beginning of the development of VithoulkasCompass, and our aim is to do research in order to provide support to the experts. So we have developed several tools to assist their work. So here I'm going to present information from analysis of COVID cases and in some comparison with cases we have analyzed in the past. So we analyze them both regarding gender, geographical distribution, repertorization, and prescribed remedies, and also the treatment effect. So we have a preliminary analysis from cases collected in the VithoulkasCompass online database. So we have 140 cases in addition to the cases that are collected in a high quality form in order to build a report. So these are cases that have been recorded in the online system and include 255 consultations and 89 prescriptions. So in these cases, about 57% are female and 43% are male. So in the graph to the right, we see the age distribution of the patients. So we see almost a normal distribution, similar to people that come to homeopath. So in order to have a comparison with the patients that come for other diseases, so we can see here in this graph an analysis of other common pathologies that patients visit homeopaths and use the VithoulkasCompass. So the distribution of COVID cases is similar to the distribution of ages that people visit homeopaths. So which are the most commonly prescribed remedies? In this graph, we can see 12 out of the 29 prescribed remedies that have been used in the 140 cases stored in our database. So most commonly, bryonia was prescribed, then arsenicum and gelsemium. So we have quite a few cases with phosphorus, and we see that there are remedies that are quite more oftenly prescribed in COVID cases. And in total, in these about 90 prescriptions, we had 29 different remedies. So in this graph, it's quite complicated, but it's obvious that you can see the difference in the commonly prescribed remedies in different pathologies. So this is also in COVID cases. We have some remedies that are more commonly prescribed compared to the other remedies. Also, we have seen in different regions of the world that there are differences in remedies that are commonly prescribed. So, but we have not made this analysis for COVID cases up to now because we don't have so many cases. And also the pathologies are different in different regions. So we'll do this analysis, perform this analysis at a later stage when we have more COVID cases. So regarding the symptoms, which are the most common symptoms, up to now we have almost 3,000 rubric entries in our database. So the most common one is dry cough, and the second one is weakness and influenza and fever. What is interesting to note in this table is that we also count the intensity of each symptom. So you can see that although dry cough is the most common one, the intensity is not at the highest level. So we have 4 levels of intensity, and we have also 0 when it is this symptom during the follow-up has been recorded as being cured and doesn't exist any longer on the patient. So But with the highest intensity, we see that the weakness is at a very high level, at a degree of 3 and even 4. In severe influenza and high fever. So we see that one of the most important symptoms that are also quite intense are the weakness, influenza, and high fever. And we see also quite common the loss of taste. And here we have also together fever and weakness. This is an issue that when we also worked in analyzing the database from the American Institute of Homeopathy. There aren't any specific symptoms, but the symptoms are written in free text. So there we searched in the free text to how we can group the symptoms and if another symptoms contains modalities or can be used from other symptoms. So we see this example here that we have also fear and we have weakness. We have a combined symptom of fever and weakness. So this is an issue and it also affects the way the repertoire is developed. And I'm going to also to explain some issues about the work of in the repertoire regarding grouping and analyzing based on the symptoms. So here we have, in summary, the most common symptoms, and we also record the intensity of these symptoms. So in order to promote case collection and analysis of case collection, we have cooperative international projects. We have cooperated with HPUS for arsenicum provings in order to assist these clinical trials and the relation of clinical trials to the provings of homeopathic remedies. We are in cooperation with the CCRH for case collection and analysis from several clinics in India. And we also have made a high quality case collection initiative together with Robbert Haselen, and we had a workshop in the last Ligam Congress in Sorrento. We planned also to have a next workshop in the next Liga conference, but due to the COVID pandemic, this was postponed. But we promote clinical case collection also through this webinar. And all this process is also providing useful evidence for improving homeopathy. And this information will be provided also to an expert group from in Liga in order to further analyze and derive conclusion from this case collection. What we have seen is that many rubrics, even in a concise repertory that we work on, have not been used at all. And many rubrics are used quite often. So we focus a lot on the statistical analysis of cases in order to improve the repertory. So we work a lot on the repertory utilization, how homeopaths search in order to find the appropriate symptom. And we have developed experimentally a small repertory based only on statistical analysis of cured cases. And testing this repertory on actual cases has provided us a good confidence that all this work with clinical cases and statistical analysis will help and improve and provide tools for the homeopaths and help improve homeopathy. So this is a small repertory that has only about 200 remedies and 3,000 symptoms. and about 10,000 relations between symptoms and remedies. So this small repertory is quite useful and encourages to work more on analyzing cases. So our target is to provide high quality tools to support homeopathic practice. So in my opinion, it is also what we have learned from this pandemic, it is that the homeopath should treat in an individualized way each patient. And we're working also to support homeopaths. And thank you all for your attention.
Thank you, Robert. Thank you, Theodore, for this very interesting presentation. It is interesting that that we have enough cases up to now to show rubrics, symptoms that are used, and also remedies, and that these symptoms and remedies agree with the experience up to now from other sources as well about the remedies and the symptoms that are used. Now, if you can share your screen, okay, I will share mine to show you a short now PowerPoint presentation and then the VithoulkasCompass platform. Okay. Okay. Web technologies to serve homeopathy. Question number one, if we need computers and technology for our homeopathic practice, not in the old times, not so old times, we used only the books. But even then, the need for structuring the information raised from the very beginning. This is Hahnemann, of course, and this book written in 1805. It is the forerunner of Materia Medica Pura and the forerunner of the repertory. This is in this book called Fragmenta de Biribus. Hahnemann wrote his first provings of 27 remedies, but it is interesting that the second part of the book, the first part is remedies and then the symptoms, and the second part is the symptoms and then the remedies, like we have in the repertory. So although he had only 27 remedies, the need to have a formation, a structure which is similar to the repertory was there. In 1832, this is Benninghausen, and he formulated the first repertory, and he gave also the name repertory with 52 remedies. And the milestone in our history of homeopathy is Kent's repertory, with the first edition, the 1897, and the sixth edition, 1957, with about 650 remedies.
I'm sorry, Lefteris, can I interrupt you for a second?
Yes.
Can you maximize your presentation so we can have a better view, please?
Do you see it now better?
No. It would be better if you can do it by...
now?
That's much better. Thank you so much.
Okay. So we had card repertories. If you Google card repertories, you will see that it is a first need for helping the homeopath to find the remedy. Even though the information was not that much, the homeopaths tried to find methods to help them during the remedy finding. The card repertories had some cards. One card was a symptom and it had some holes on it. And they tried to see which hole goes, the light goes through all the holes, and that is which remedy covered the totality. Then we had the first computers that the information got into these computers, the first repertories, the first expert system. And now we are here in the 21st century where we have an advanced system like the VithoulkasCompass with, and now I'm going to show you some things about the program. Let me reshare my screen. Okay. So we are here now. This is what you see when you log into the program, My Cases. You see here some folders. You can have as many folders as you like. Here you see some main cases. Here you see suspected COVID cases, confirmed COVID cases, and you can have here folders from your various clinics and arrange your cases. Now, let's go through quickly to some features. Like one feature is the Materia Medica, that we have all the remedies. We have for each remedy the GV notes, which are the main features for each remedy, and some other books like Berke, Clark, Kent, Allen, Acute Materia Medica, etc. And this Materia Medica, you can also do search. Like here, I search for jerkings. And now I see in whole Materia Medica where the word jerking is present and in which book. You see Agaricus here, Berke, Agaricus again, Clark, Agaricus Kent, etc. No, now let us go to the repertory. We have actually two repertories in VithoulkasCompass. One repertory is the general VC repertory, and the other is the acute repertory. In the repertory, you can also do search. Let's do, and the search, you will see that it is easy. Let us say I have a patient that has mucus, that the mucus is so deep that he finds it difficult to cough to get rid of the mucus. If I don't know in which chapter or subchapter to look for this symptom of the difficulty to cough to get rid of the mucus, I just type for two keywords like cough and mucus. I click search. I see which rubrics come up, and you see here this interesting rubric, cough, deep enough sensation as though he could not cough deep enough to start mucus. So this is the rubric that I'm looking for. So if I had the book, I have to know that I had to look too deep after cough to the letter D, or if I would go from chapter to subchapter. But now that I have this search, I just typed cough and mucus, and I see this rubric with 8 remedies. Causticum is the remedy that pops up with a 3rd degree. Then Mesereum and some other remedies with 1st degree, Arsenicum, Belladonna, Drosera, Lachesis, Medorinum, and Drumex. And now that I saw Causticum, I want to see in what type of cough causticum has. I type the remedy causticum here and cough. I click search. And now all the rubrics of causticum that have the word cough in the rubric come up. So you see as the first rubric with the 4th degree causticum, bladder, urination, involuntary during cough, this keynote of causticum in the 4th degree. Extremities pain on coughing, chest pain, sternum behind when coughing, etc. So with this search, I can search for a rubric and also for a remedy and also for a chapter. If I want to see not cough but mind symptoms of causticum, I click mind, causticum, and I see, of course, cannot support injustice, etc. Okay. Now let us see also quickly the acute repertory. What we did in this repertory is that we restructured the repertory and put as a first chapter the acute the acute pathologies, the acute diseases. So you have fever, injuries. Let us see influenza, which is close to COVID-19, influenza. What we have is a materia medica of the influenza showing the main remedies about influenza with their characteristics. So you see aconite, sudden onset after exposure to cold, high fever, arsenicum, keywords, chills, anxiety and restlessness, thirst for sips, anxiety about health, fear of death. Let's go down, bryonia, worse motion, thirst, irritability, pain. So you have about the influenza, the main remedies with their characteristics. Okay, let's go back. Also, it is a repertory. So I click influenza and we arranged the symptoms within each acute pathology according to some chapters like etiology, appearance, sensation of pain, etc. So influenza, etiology from exposure to cold, and you see agonium with 3, arsenicum, rustox. Etiology, wet from cold, wet weather, dulcamara, rustox. Slow manifestation and sudden manifestation. There was even a long conversation about how what is slow manifestation and what is sudden, how slow is slow. And the definition that we ended up is that 18 hours, less than 18 hours, perhaps is slow manifestation. And the sudden manifestation is within less hours. We know that aconitum and belladonna, after exposure to cold, they may develop symptoms in just a few hours. And other remedies like bryonia, gelsemium need more hours in order to develop symptoms. So let us go and show you what I have done regarding the COVID cases. I did something similar that Dr. Manish Badia did. I took the symptoms here from the website of World Health Organization, the most common symptoms, the less common symptoms, and I did the repertorization. And I put the most common symptoms in the 3rd degree: fever, cough, dry cough, influenza with weakness, influenza, and the less common symptoms in the 2nd degree. And let me show you the results. First with the flood repertorization that counts only it actually adds the symptoms and the degrees, arsenicum pulsatilla, sulfur natrium muriaticum, but it is interesting to see the expert system of VithoulkasCompass that scores as first remedies Eupatorium perfoliatum, Gelsemium, Bryonia, and Arsenicum. I repeat, this is the symptoms that I got from the WHO website, the symptoms about COVID-19. And then let us see why it comes up with these remedies. Eupatorium because influenza fever, the pains in the muscles and the pains in the bones during influenza. Gelsemium, again, the influenza with weakness, influenza fever, influenza with head pain, etc. Bryonia, because mainly of the dry cough, which is high. And it also covers the other symptoms, influenza with weakness, although it is in the second degree in this rubric. Here you can see the rubric, influenza with weakness. The first remedy is Gelsemium, and then is arsenicum and phosphorus. So this just to get a taste of the program. Now, because the program, our time is tight, here perhaps I put only the main symptoms, the fever and the dry cough and the weakness, the three symptoms that are the most common. And let us see the results again. Again, we have Gelsemium, Bryonia, Arsenicum, Eupatorium perfoliatum. We see these remedies coming up again and again. But of course, in homeopathy, we have the individualization, and I remind you here the case that I presented that was sent to us by Dr. Maria Pepa, which is a student of Professor Vithoulkas, and she sent us a case of pyrogenium. She did not prescribe the remedies that are here to be common, but she prescribed pyrogenium because of the severity of the case, because of the pains and the pains in the thighs and some characteristic symptoms of pyrogenium. Now at this point, I want to read again the case, and then in this case, we are going to do the poll, that is, try to apply the criteria, the modified Naranjo criteria for homeopathy, to evaluate the action actually of the remedy. Okay. I remind you that this is a case of a 43-year-old woman, doctor from England. Let us go to read the title. A case report of a COVID-19 positive 43-year-old female medical doctor treated with classical homeopathy. We have a confirmed COVID-19 positive test with PCR, and the symptoms developed as follows. On 18th of April, the patient started feeling unwell with sore throat, running nose. On 13th of April, she became worse with headache, watery eyes, anorexia, chills, fatigue, nausea. On 18th of April, like 7 days after the onset of symptoms, we had fever, which was until 38.5. The patient felt very bad with nausea, muscle pains, pain in the bones, pleuric chest pains because of dry cough. She used and she used paracetamol 3 to 4 times per day. Okay, till Friday the 14th of April, she was only on paracetamol. And on Friday, that is quite some days, like 6 days after the onset of the fever, she was worse. She could not get up from bed. She was sleeping during the day with fever until 38.5, muscle pains, bone pains, nausea, chills, pain in thighs, sensation that the bed was hard, headache, and at last she received the homeopathic remedy. At 9 p.m. she took 1 dose of pyrogenium, and she repeated at 11 p.m. She stopped paracetamol, and she woke up at 3:30 a.m. without any symptoms except from fatigue. That is, she had no pains anymore and no fever. And in the morning, the appetite came back again, and she asked for food and water. Okay, that is the first remedy, pyrogenium, and some days after, because of the fatigue that was going on, she took also, she was prescribed also muriatic acid. That also helped the fatigue, the weakness. This is the solution, pyrogenium. Okay, now in this case, we now ask you to apply, we are going now to send you the modified Naranjo criteria for you to try to solve, to try to evaluate this case according to the Naranjo criteria. Let me unshare my screen. Okay, now in your screen, you may be able to see the poll and try to answer to these questions. Chetna, do you want to also read these questions?
Yes. First domain is, was there an improvement in the main symptom or condition for which the homeopathic medicine was prescribed? Did the clinical improvement occur within a plausible time frame relative to the medicine intake? Third domain is, was there a homeopathic aggravation of symptoms? Fourth domain, can we have it on the screen, sir?
Don't you see the poll must have been popped up?
Yes, got it.
Yes.
So fourth domain is, did the effect encompass more than the main symptom or condition? That is, were other symptoms not related to the main presenting complaint improved or changed? Fifth domain consisted of, did overall well-being improve? Suggest using a validated scale or mention about changes in physical, emotional, and behavioral elements.
You are muted, Chetna.
Yeah. Domain 6A and 6B, they are pertaining to direction of cure. Here we have two domains, 6A, 6B, but as they are not reported, they are not observed. So we have just kept only 6A here, 6B, because of the constraint of this survey, we can have only the 10 questions. So we have omitted. Seventh is, did the old symptoms defined as non-seasonal and non-cyclical symptoms that were previously thought to have resolved reappear temporarily during the course of improvement?
Again, you are muted.
Yes. The next question is, are there alternative causes, that is other than the medicine, that with a high probability could have produced the improvement? So consider known course of disease, other forms of treatment, and other clinically relevant interventions. was the health improvement confirmed by any objective evidence? And last domain consists of repeat dosing.
Again, you are muted, and if you want, you can start your video as well in order that we can see you.
I'll do that. Did the repeat dosing, if conducted, create similar clinical improvement? So these are the 10 domains, and a case Dr. Lefteris has very nicely narrated. Please evaluate these domains for the particular case which was discussed now. Thank you.
So we ask you to answer these questions. Click according of what do you think it applies better to the COVID cases that I have read to you, and then click submit in order for us to get the answers. Let us give some time to the attendees and we in the panel we can also complete the form. I think, Robert, it is very easy, this poll with Zoom, very easy to be completed. And now let us see, I'm curious to see the results of this poll. In every questions, we are going to see a percentage of how many people have answered yes, no, or not applicable.
How many responses have we got, Lefteris? Because people may still need a few more minutes, eh?
Yes, we will wait a few more minutes.
Okay. While waiting for the poll to come out, I would like to thank Petra via mail for her question. If there is going to be an observational study based on the data that we have collected. So there is one of the targets of this webinar is to assist collaboration between the participants. So with the guidance of Robert van Haselen, we want to help cooperation in this field in order to have more studies that are given either to journals so that the results of the work of homeopaths are get more publicly available. And so this is one of the targets of this webinar, to combine efforts in order to have more fruitful results. And if Robert, could you also comment in this issue and the target of the webinar?
Well, yes, I think the overriding target is really to foster that people submit high quality cases. And but more specifically, the idea is also that we would like them to select some of the most interesting or the best cases. And ideally, we would like to use those as well in the fourth webinar in a very practical way. So in other words, we're really going to practically analyze those cases using the home case care, using the MONARCH. So the idea is really to to get some cases in the coming week actually, or still new case material, also hopefully inspired by the seminars, the webinars that we have given, and that in 2 weeks' time we're really going to go, is going to be the very practical one. So the idea is that we're really going to apply all the things that we have learned, and really go in a very interactive way, share our experiences. And then from there, ideally, we will select the ideas that we will select the top 1 and 2, and they these best case reports will get support from myself, and so we will really help you to get your case published in either a homeopathic or maybe also a case reporting journal, because there are many clinical case report journals. So it could even be published in a more broader journal, which is not just homeopathic. But the idea is that the 2 most interesting cases, they will then get my support also, editorial support and tips how to further improve, and ultimately get a publication on your name.
Very good. And Theodore, we have a question about a remedy. What do you say about the use of ammonium carbonicum? It is interesting to see if you can show us again the remedies that we have found to be more frequently prescribed in the COVID cases that we have, and see again the remedies. I think it will be very interesting. And you can unmute your microphone too. And if you can also explain how the methodology of how we get those cases that you showed to us. I mean that there are cases that they are in our database with the with COVID information in the main symptom. If you can explain.
Yeah, in the main complaint, there is a description with COVID cases. There were a few with suspected COVID, and most of them were COVID cases. Some of them are together with pneumonia, some with other additional description in the main complaint. But I have searched also in the 29 prescribed remedies, and this remedy was not prescribed, but it's a small sample, but we have 90 remedies, 90 prescriptions. So, okay, the remedy depends on the homeopath. It's a individualized treatment, so this is what is most commonly used.
So we have bryonia, arsenicum, gelsemium, phosphorus, the first 4 remedies, phosphoricum acidum, rustox, pulsatilla, China, mercurius, camphora, ipecacuanha, and antimonium tartaricum. Okay, very good. And can you let me show for a moment what do we mean by main complaint. Let me show you again the VithoulkasCompass. So what Theodore did is that when you have a case, when you write a new case here the practitioner is asked, the homeopath is asked to write the main complaint. So here it writes pneumonia or COVID or anything. So the most of the cases that Theodore got is that we got retrospectively from the main complaint. He took these cases. So the majority of the cases is according to the reported diagnosis of the homeopath. And also we have the more high quality cases that were sent to us through through the LMHI 2020 account, that these cases are with the feeling of the, let me show you again, with the feeling, if you feel the proper template, which is this, and if you feel this. So most our cases are from the main complaint and some are from here. And we encourage you to send us your case by filling this template according to the information that Dr. Van Haselen, that Robbert gave, that you can find again by watching the YouTube webinars 1 and 2. Okay. Now I don't know, Andreas, if we have any results from our poll.
Okay, and yeah, I'm just gonna stop the poll now.
Yeah, I noticed that quite a few people have not answered. We have to, could people please comment why that's the case, or if it was too difficult or they didn't have the information. So we'd like to have that feedback, please. We're going to close the poll now, but we definitely want to understand maybe why a number of you have not filled in the questionnaire.
Can you see the results now?
Yes. Dr. Chetna, can you please go through the results and comment?
Yes. It's very encouraging to see that 100% agree that there was an improvement in the main symptom or condition, and 96% agree that this improvement was within a plausible time frame. Then homeopathic aggravation, 67% say no, and 15% not sure, 19% say yes. Then did the effect encompass more than the main symptom? 40% say yes, and 60% say no or not sure. Now, did overall well-being improve? 83% say yes, remaining no or not sure. Direction of cure, no is 17%, not applicable 46%, and 38% say yes. Old symptoms reappear, 21% yes, and majority say no or not applicable. Regarding are there any alternative causes which could have caused the improvement, 71% agree on no. And coming on to was the health improvement confirmed by any objective evidence? A good number, 69% say yes, and remaining go with no or not applicable. Repeat dosing, I think this further needs clarification, because 52% say yes, 15% no, and 33% not applicable. Now I'll just go and elaborate the reasons that what could have been the most appropriate answer. So coming on to domain 1, the score is yes, and the answer is yes, and the score which is attributed to yes is 2. Justification is that not only the fever subsided, but also the weakness was improved. So 6 hours after pyrogenum, 1M was taken, fever subsided, but weakness persisted. And after the dose of muriatic acid, weakness was also much better. And on 7th patient is well. So we'll say that there is improvement and there's 100% agreement on this domain. Now on second domain, did the clinical improvement occur within a plausible time frame? We had a very good consensus here also because this is based on clinical judgment, and we can see just after 6 hours of taking pyrogenum, fever subsided. And after muriatic, after next day of taking muriatic acid 1M, weakness was also much better. So 6 hours and next day, we can definitely take it as that improvement has occurred within a plausible time frame. Now coming on to homeopathic aggravation of symptoms. In the last webinar, when Dr. Lefteris was elaborating it, I had a feeling that maybe there was some intensification of symptoms. But when I had gone through, that is not explicitly mentioned or observed. So here the score is 0 and it is as it is not observed. Then domain 4, did the effect encompass more than the main symptom or condition? So here also it is not applicable, no such information is available, so score goes as 0. Then domain 5, regarding the overall well-being. Here also we'll say, though the patient was having anorexia as narrated in the main complaint, but here again we'll emphasize that appetite of the patient returned and the patient is feeling healthy, and 2 days after muriatic acid, she returned to work. Moreover, under the patient's perspective, patient has mentioned that I am fully recovered and back on my feet again. See, though we don't have much of data on the sequelae or the long-term complications of COVID-19, but still, as per the information from the COVID survivors who are getting onto the social media and describing their experiences, we have observed that fatigue, low-grade fever, anxiety, depression, these things are being reported. But in this particular case, no sequelae of disease was reported. So we'll definitely say that overall well-being improved. Pertaining to direction of cure, not mentioned, no, just not mentioned, so not applicable regarding both the domains. And same is with, did the old symptoms reappear? Score is 0. Then coming on to domain 8, are there alternative causes that with a high probability could have produced the improvement? So here we have to consider the course of disease, other forms of treatment, and other clinically relevant interventions. One more thing I'll like to elaborate here, that this is the very important domain where we have to be very critical of our success. The reason being, and there were many questions on this domain also, so I'll answer them together here, that domain 8 is important because case reports are considered as the lowest level of evidence as per the hierarchy of evidence. So therefore, the probability should be high when we are saying that yes, our medicine has helped the patient. So here, no other treatment after initiation of homeopathic intervention was given. Fever on 18th April, that was on the 7th day of illness was there, and patient was on PCM till then. Condition remained worsened, and pyrogen was given on the 6th day of fever, and subsequently no fever and with the return of appetite. Now, considering the median time from the onset to clinical recovery for mild cases, mind it, this is a mild case as per the various classification, WHO, CDC classification, and One more classification is by NIH. So this case comes under the mild category, and mostly the mild cases are resolving within a period of 2 weeks. But here we can see that the patient kept on deteriorating till 13th day of illness prior to taking homeopathy. So probability was that if the patient had not taken homeopathy, she could have gone to the moderate category. So in this particular case, therefore, self-recovery is probably unlikely. Now, domain 9, was the health improvement confirmed by any objective evidence? Yes. Although there is a lack of objective finding, and RT-PCR would have been the best, but there is no availability of lab tests, X-rays, oxygen saturation, pulse. But considering the new pandemic, dearth of resources for getting the investigations done, government policy on testing is different in different countries. Therefore, the temperature taken from the armpit is considered as an objective evidence. Domain 10, this is not applicable here. Now, reason why. See, domain 10 is not the follow-up. Probably you got confused that patient had taken the second dose of pyrogen. Now, this repetition is the subsequent, it is within the follow-up. For example, it is just a hypothetical situation. If the patient, may God forbid, if the patient develops and gets a second infection with this COVID-19 and has similar clinical picture, and then we are giving the same medicine and patient is helped with that, that will come under the repeat dosing, but not the routine follow-up which we are given. So you can please refer to the previous webinar, or if you have further doubts, you can ask over email. Now, points to remember before submitting a successfully treated COVID-19 case. Kindly categorize the case as per COVID-19 treatment guidelines panel. The reference is here, Coronavirus Disease 2019 Treatment Guidelines by NIH, and these are available at the link given. Please mention about the status of associated complaints along with the main complaints in subsequent follow-ups, like anorexia, pains, etc. What happened to them, when they disappeared and all. It would be better if we mention in the case. It is also requested to mention about the pre-existing morbidities and also mention if these are absent. Like if the patient is hypertensive, having any cardiovascular disease, diabetes. So we should mention about all these things because they'll affect the prognosis. And also kindly elaborate on about the changes in physical, emotional and behavioral elements when using a validated scale is not possible. And we are very thankful to Dr. Maria for sharing this nice case, which had so many learning lessons for us. Thank you, Dr. Maria. Now coming on to the most sought after question on scoring of MONARCH. The scoring for MONARCH is yet to be validated. Based on the retrospective analysis of published case reports pertaining to chronic cases, nearly 50% cases had a score of 8, and the recently published case reports wherein the authors have evaluated as per modified Naranjo criteria, a score of 8 and above is observed. So based on these observations and as a rule of thumb, mind it is just as a rule of thumb for the chronic cases, a score of 8 and above, and for acute cases, 6 and above, as some of the domains may not be applicable or they may not be present, it has been reduced to 6. This may be considered a good causality score. The higher the score, the stronger the likelihood of causality between intervention and outcome. A score less than this should not deter the authors from reporting where they have a strong justification. So please, this is just as a rule of thumb, but keep reporting your cases where you feel confident, where you feel that yes, the patient has successfully been treated. So don't simply be guided by scoring, just apply the MONARCH and justify and publish. This needs to be further validated, further applied on a good number of cases to see the commonly assessed score to critically fix the cutoff. Now, one more question which I like to address was pertaining to the Oradel scores, which are being used at a cutoff of 2 or more than that. Oradel is a valid and sensitive tool for measuring the change in relation to impact on life. It measures patients' views on the outcome of care, which may have the following challenges, like basic nature of patient may be indolent, hypochondriac, may not express what the actual situation is. Second can be due to compliance with the treatment. And third is apparent relief, but deterioration of condition, which we see in pleuritic chest pain, which becomes better with the development of pleural effusion. So this may lead to bias without clinical judgment. With regard to Oradel threshold of 2, which is a bit arbitrary, will however most likely cause more false positives. So with this, I'll just like to thank you for your active interest, active participation. Thank you.
We thank you, Dr. Chetna, for this very educational presentation and this practical application that help us to understand these criteria, these useful criteria better. A question that I see here is, in the case paracetamol and pyrogenium both were given, how you are sure that effect is due to pyrogen only? And what I want to say is that the patient all these days was taking paracetamol, not the day that she took the homeopathic remedy, the pyrogenium. And when she took the pyrogenium, she discontinued the paracetamol. So with the paracetamol, the appetite was still low, the pain in the bones and the muscle were still continuing, and this got down and the fever resolved after pyrogenium. So we can contribute the action to pyrogenium. What do you think, Dr. Chetna?
Yes, absolutely. And she was on paracetamol since she was developing fever from 18. Until 24th, she was taking. But after receiving, and fever was recurring. But after taking a dose of pyrogenum, fever was controlled and it did not recover. So that is a major causality. And also considering the natural course, I have already said that though 14 days we consider it should be a self-recovery. But when we go to the case, the patient is deteriorating gradually, even on 13th day. So immediately after taking pyrogen, within 6 hours of pyrogenum, patient improved. So it is a very good probability that patient is better with homeopathic intervention.
Thank you very much. Now, in the panel, Irini Micholici, who is a member of our team, visit team, has joined. And I want to ask her, since we have some time, to tell us again about how can practitioners can submit their cases. And after that, then Robbert will tell us about the next webinar, and then we finish. Irini, please unmute your.
Okay.
Yes.
Hello, everyone. So the last time I made a quick demonstration on how you can submit a COVID-19 case with the use of VithoulkasCompass software. For those who have received we have sent a document containing my previous presentation, and I will go through it very quickly since we have already done it. But additionally, I would like to make clear how you can register, because we received some questions about how somebody can register and make use of the coupon. that can grant you a 1 month free access. So I'm going to share my screen now. And okay, as I said last time, there are 2 ways that somebody can report their COVID-19 case. The first one is by using the VithoulkasCompass account, and the second one is by email. And if you have not received the document, please contact us at lmhi2020@vithoulkascompass.com so that we can resend you this document and have the full access to it, because I'm going to go through this very quickly. The last time I used an example of an acute case of pneumonia, which was reported at the Hahnemannian Advocate Monthly magazine. And I made an example of how you can repertorize and add all this information in your case. So this is the information of the case that you have already received or will receive. There were 3 prescriptions, and I analyzed all the steps, and I have made some print screens so that you can have a visual interaction with it. And so this is the addition we have made to this presentation, which is how to apply the coupon. And I will now show it to you by logging into my account. So as soon as you make your registration, this is the field where you register, and you will need to fill in some information about your username, your password, and the email that will verify your subscription. So as soon as you do all this process, you will log into your account, and you will go to this field over here, which says my account. And then there is a list down below, which is, and there is a tab called purchase. And then you will need to fill in the coupon COVID-19. You will need to click on apply coupon, and then you will just need to click proceed. So this is the whole process. This grants you, as I said before, a 1 month free access, and you can familiarize yourself with the use of VithoulkasCompass and fill in your case. So just because we're in a tight schedule, I just repeat that for any further information or assistance and for resending this document, please contact us at lmhi2020@vithoulkascompass.com. That was it. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Verini, for this brief and important information. Now, about the questions, again, there is about the pyrogenium. I believe we have answered this question. And then there is a question about CAF. We have in CAF validation, the determination of strong case is used on score upper quartile of modified Naranjo. How can we interpret it? I'm not sure if I have understand. Have you understood the question, and Dr. Chetna?
This question is not clear to me.
Okay. The other question is whether the scoring of each 10 questions were again validated. If yes, what was the methodology used?
I have validated the questionnaire, but regarding the scoring, I'll request Dr. Haselen to elaborate how they have determined it and what was the procedure.
Well, I mean, this was more or less explained also by Dr. Lamba last week, but it's about there's different ways of looking at the validity. One is the face validity, whether it seems reasonable, but the main level of validation took place based on whether different observers agree in terms of their observation. And with the exception of the Herring criteria, so that was 6A and 6B, all the items were considered, that was considered to be a sufficient level of agreement between observers to conclude, yes, we feel confident. So, I mean, this is really to the credit of Dr. Lamba, that she has really approached it in a very scientific way. And so we are much more confident now. Maybe one comment on the scoring. As Dr. Lamba also said, the scoring as such is not validated yet. So I would like to emphasize that we should avoid saying, oh, if the score is below a certain cutoff, it's not good, and if it's above, it is a good case. Even though, of course, we can use these rule of thumbs. And as we mentioned, a rough rule of thumb for chronic cases is this score of 8, that if it's 8 or higher, then we can be reasonably confident that this is a fairly good case. And one point for clarification, we lowered this threshold to 6 for acute cases. And that is mainly because some of the items, like for instance, Herring's, the Herring's law criteria, or the repeat dosing. So because some items are highly likely to be not applicable in acute cases, that's why we lowered this cutoff. But I want to emphasize that it's really to use this score to give you a sense of whether you have a strong or a weaker argumentation, and not to use absolute cutoff points, because it depends. There could be a score, a case which is 7, but maybe the outcome is documented in a very objective way, using very rigorous measurements, and so there are all kind of factors that could come into the weighing. But it's ultimately, again, about creating transparency, that before we had this, if someone says, oh yeah, I have a strong case, yeah, and I feel that the remedy, the response was clearly related to the remedy, and then if someone would say, well, what gave you that confidence? We simply did not have much or nothing systematic to argue that, yes, I went through a systematic process and my confidence is grounded in these and these and these and these observations. And so again, it's not about black and white. It's not about good and bad, but the home case care guideline and the MONARCH inventory, they give us tools to be more transparent and more explicit in our reasoning. And that's the hallmark of science, because any kind of scientific study you do, someone will say, well, I agree or I disagree. But the main point is that you have that transparency. You've been clear about your methods. You've been clear about your reasoning. And that can be applied as much to cases as to a randomized controlled trial. It's the same kind of logic.
Thank you very much, Robert. Now, as we are running out of time, can you please explain about the next webinar that will be a workshop, actually, and we may ask also for the from the practitioners that have the best cases to actually present their cases. So please tell us about this workshop.
Yes, so just 1 minute before I go on to the practicality of the 4th webinar, I just wanted to share a few take-home messages so far, which are really important points to take home from these 3 webinars we've had so far, is that the issue of whether a case report is a good method, whether it's good or bad. There's always this discussion, yeah, we only need only randomized controlled trials are good and case reports are anecdotal and therefore not good. This whole discussion is in my opinion, not very useful at all, because no method in its own is inherently better or worse. What matters is, what do you hope to achieve? And so you always have to think about, in science, and so this is a general scientific principle, is that first you have to think about, what is my objective? And the method is simply a tool to achieve your objective. And so you define your objective, and then you're saying, you choose a tool that's suitable to achieve that objective. And as you may remember from my first webinar, I mentioned Professor Jenicek, that he distinguished like 35 objectives for case report. Again, he started about, what are your objectives? And then you say, when you want to use the clinical case report as a tool for a particular objective, is it educational? Is it research? So I always emphasize, and I've been doing that for the last 20 years or so, that we should not just think about a hierarchy of evidence, but or a pyramid. We should really be talking about a mosaic of evidence, or a house of evidence, or someone like Professor Harold Wallach, he's saying we need a circular perspective on evidence, that not one is better or worse. It simply depends on your objective. Now, what I hope to have communicated, and all of us hope to have clarified, is that there's a lot of room for improving our case reporting, because even the cases that we initially got, we said, it can be improved, and there's a lot of room. And so if we improve our case reports, we're tapping into enormous potential, which is the richness of our experience. And so we've still missing capturing some of the richness of our experience as homeopaths, and that's a loss. So just to remind you that evidence-based medicine, the definition is the judicious application of the best available evidence. So that's really about external evidence, whether we've done studies, whether we have high quality case reports published, whether we have trials, whether we have observational data. But the second part is applying that in the context of caring for individual patients. And that's really your practice. That's your surgery. That's really applying evidence in context. So this is evidence-based medicine, practice-based application of evidence. So we're talking about case reports as a kind of a story, and there's an enormous power in a story. And if you look at the overwhelming agreement between cognitive scientists, and this is what I've also tried to explain in my first webinar, is that humans are not ideally set up to understand logic, but they are ideally set up to understand stories. And this has to do with our evolution as hunter-gatherers, that telling stories was a way of communicating information. And before we even have script, stories were ways of transferring knowledge from one generation to the next. So our brain is simply much more geared up for understanding stories than to understand necessarily logic. So the story and the narrative of the patient is sort of this emotional connection that motivates and inspires us. And when we were preparing these webinars and we read the patient narrative of this doctor, of the case that we have shared, we felt, wow, it just made you realize, I mean, this is why we are applying homeopathy. This is why we're doing it. And so that story, that narrative is inspiring. Why? Because it moves us. It gives this emotional connection to what we're doing. And that's very useful and very important. But it's also clear that if this narrative, this story is to be more than anecdotal, we need to marry it with what I would then, as I have explained, critical and slow thinking. So again, it's not that this narrative is good and the other thing is bad, or that we all need to only do analytical thinking and that these more subjective things are bad. It's we need to ultimately a marriage between both aspects. And this is something that we have tried to transfer during this webinar. Finally, well, how does this really benefit your own practice, you may ask? Well, applying this principle will directly benefit your own practice because I've been speaking about these biases. All of you, and that's not a criticism, it's simply everybody is susceptible to this thing called confirmation or overconfidence bias. And so the treacherous thing here is that confirmation bias will make you feel quite comfortable and confident. It makes you think, yeah, I've been practicing homeopathy for 15, 20 years now. You know, I think I'm a good homeopath. I think I'm more or less working out how to do this. But that comfort also will prevent you from learning from your own and others' experiences. So when I teach this critical thinking and when I start telling people how can you de-bias yourself, then if you apply those principles, that involves effort because you need to be more structured and some discomfort. And this discomfort is usually triggered by the fact that people start doubting themselves. And this is what I call positive doubt. And so if you feel a bit uncomfortable, that's a good sign. That means you have started thinking critically. And so, but we also know that our human psychology is geared towards wanting to avoid discomfort. So it's very tempting to say, no, I prefer to stay in my own comfort zone. And so I always try to foster this sense of wonder and curiosity, a bit like the child in ourselves. A child is asking questions. A child will ask, does God exist? I mean, a child will ask, how are you sure that God exists? And a child has that sense of wonder and curiosity. And this is really also that can feed your critical thinking, and the scientist in you should be fed by that sense of wonder and that curiosity about really asking the questions, even if they're difficult questions. So everything that was taught can be applied in your daily practice and case taking. So you can apply this in your practice, not just in terms of the process of writing up and publishing a clinical case report. So it's very broad, the applicability. However, we do want your clinical case reports, and we do want your COVID cases, and we hope in the coming week definitely to get several more cases from you, and these cases will be reviewed and evaluated, and we will select 2 of those cases for the 4th webinar, which will be taking place in 2 weeks from now. So to give us a little bit more time. And again, the idea is that before the webinar, we will share the case reports with you. So the idea is that you are supposed to look at those cases. I mean, you have already received a link prior to this webinar with all the information, with the home case care checklist, with the MONARCH questionnaire. And so the idea really is that you now, for the 4th webinar, have to apply those checklists and the MONARCH. And so we're really going to go into a 2-hour webinar where the real emphasis will be on applying this, or there will be a lot of interaction and discussion. So yes, we really hope that you will join us, and we really hope to receive a lot of your case reports in the coming week or 10 days, maximally 10 days, so then that we can still include them in the webinar. One more thing which is important, we noticed that some people in preparation for this 3rd webinar, the mail shot that we sent out ended up in their junk mail. So if for some reason you don't get a mail, then please write to LMHI 2020 at VithoulkasCompass.com, because you should receive something. And definitely the best thing is even to make sure to check your junk mail and to allocate mail shots from the Zoom and from the Compass as safe. So that's what I wanted to share with you. Lefteris, over to you if you have any final comments.
Thank you, Robert. If you can unshare your screen, thank you. What I want to show is that the material, where you can find the material that we sent also via email in the newsletter, but you can find it also here. You go to VithoulkasCompass.com, LMHI project, and here we say about the call for case collection, and by clicking this link here, you can download the material about the Naranjo criteria and the case that we presented, and the checklist, the guidelines checklist for doing the case report. What I want to add also is about the price, that the first cases will have, the two first cases will have a price of 6 months unlimited subscription in Vithoulkas Compass. So we are very much anticipating your cases, and as Robert said, you will have the chance also, if you want to present your case in our next webinar in exactly 2 weeks from now. Thank you very much for attending our webinar also. Thank you very much our panelists, Robert, Dr. Chetna, Theodore, Andreas, Irini, all of you. Thank you very much, and we see you again in 2 weeks from now.